For the past several years, the United States has been under a soft takeover of communism, of tyranny, of monarchism, and so on and so forth. The New World Order has been attempting to completely destroy our Constitution and enact martial law. What you're watching across your screen right now is both protests that are ongoing but quieting, and of course, the calls on Craigslist for paid protesters, which is quite alarming because there are millions of dollars being spent to overthrow the United States. In fact, Democrats are now calling for a revolution in the streets. This is huge. What is supposed to be a peaceful transition is looking like it's not going to be anything like that at all. The surprise victory by Donald Trump on November 8th has spawned a series of violent protests and riots all over the nation as stunned leftists and communists, which they're pretty much one and the same, continue to throw the largest post-election temper tantrum in U.S. history. Keep that in mind. Not to mention, Planned Parenthood is funding and fueling the anti-Trump protests. Soros and affiliates are holding urgent strategy meetings with the DNC elite, as well as funding these protests. To top that off, on Trump's inauguration day, or at 5 p.m. when he gets inaugurated, the largest protest / riot, I would argue that it's not a protest, it's a riot, is planned. The police, Oathkeepers, and so on and so forth are on alert. The Oathkeepers are warning. Let me read you a quote from them. Clearly, as Oathkeepers, we cannot simply sit around and watch while the enemies of liberty work to use violence to initiate a communist revolution in our country. As a result of the intelligence being provided by our Operation Sabat operatives, we have initiated Operation Hypo, Hypo. We have allowed our personnel to burrow deep inside these protest organizations to collect information regarding tactics, motivations, schedules, and logistics. We had operatives at the planning meetings for the protests that occurred last evening in Baltimore and Philadelphia. Our operatives have also penetrated numerous other planning organizations in cities across the country. For OPSEC reasons, the precise list of cities we are operating in will not be publicly disclosed. The Oathkeepers are worried about a communist revolution. Which brings us to our next point. Hillary Clinton and her purple revolution. During her speech, she stated, "I want everybody coming out from behind, and make sure your voices are heard going forward." Taken at face value, that doesn't mean much. But however, this little call to action, I would argue, is the very beginning of their next phase, or phase 2 of their takeover. This is on The Guardian. Protests won't stop Trump. We need a movement that transforms into a party. That's their plan. Is Planned Parenthood a part of this new movement? See, Soros and gang are re-strategizing, let's put it that way. Washington, D.C., billionaire globalist George Soros. By the way, at the bottom of the report that goes with this, we have a video on George Soros that you're going to want to see. It's finally resurfaced after all of these years because it was gone. But it's the expose on George Soros, and it explains that George, with a few words, can practically crash economies. Now, that said, that's huge. That man with that much power, a man with that much power, is behind this movement. Billionaire globalist George Soros is meeting with a number of Democratic mega donors and various party elite at a 3-day strategy session in Washington, D.C., to plot methods to usurp President-elect Donald Trump's agenda. In addition to Soros, House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi, Senator Elizabeth Warren, and Representative Keith Ellison, in consideration to be next DNC chair, are among the key Democrats expected to attend, according to Politico. The annual closed-door conference, which kicked off on Sunday, is sponsored by the Democracy Alliance Donor Club. Democracy Alliance was created by Soros after John Kerry lost the 2004 presidential election and annually funnels millions of dollars toward left-wing projects. For those unfamiliar with Soros, he utilizes a vast number of progressive organizations affiliated with Soros Open Society Foundation. Soros-affiliated organizations across the world are deeply connected to various color revolutions, the Arab Spring, and a number of other political uprisings across the globe. Although democracy promotion is the stated mission, in reality, the many Soros-linked organizations operate to forward their Western globalist agenda, often working to foment dissent and revolution. Color revolutions. Okay. Now we're seeing it all pieced together here. Political color. Political colors are used to represent a political party. So when Hillary Clinton wore purple, that obviously must have meant something. Much different than what it was supposed to mean. Given her words and her statements, and given what's taken place ever since, she openly, apparently called for a revolution. Now, hang on, let's go to the color purple. Purple. Although purple has some older associations with monarchism, it is the most prominent color that is not traditionally connected to any major contemporary ideology. As such, it is sometimes used to represent a mix of ideologies or new protest movements that are critical of all previously existing parties. Interesting. First of all, it was associated with monarchism is the advocacy of a monarch or monarchical rule. A monarchist is an individual who supports this form of government independent of any specific monarch. One who espouses a particular monarch is a royalist. Conversely, the opposition to monarchical rule is sometimes referred to as republicanism. Interesting, to say the least. But that said, or new protest movements that are critical of all previously existing parties. Are we about to witness a revolution in this country? The surprise victory by Donald Trump on November 8th has spawned a series of violent protests and riots all over the nation, as stunned leftists continue to throw the largest post-election temper tantrum in U.S. history. Protesters in large cities all across America have been disrupting public transportation, looting stores, hurling objects at the police, and burning Trump in effigy. There have even been shootings at anti-Trump rallies in Seattle and in Portland. Hundreds of protesters. I thought he was saying that there were only hundreds of protesters. Ladies and gentlemen, there was 25,000. I think it was just in New York. This is a massive movement. Hundreds of protesters have been arrested so far, and organizers are promising that this is only just the beginning. Isn't it funny that it's gotten a bit quiet with the riots and protests as they go to their 3-day meeting, which ends today, by the way? That's just another side note, but it's quite interesting. Meanwhile, large numbers of enraged leftists are physically threatening Trump on Twitter, and some are even calling for a violent revolution. Sadly, I believe that they are quite serious about this. Even some big celebrity names are starting to use the word revolution. In messages to their followers on Twitter, Katy Perry has ominously warned that the revolution is coming. And comedian Sarah Silverman has boldly declared that Trump gets a chance to hear us, or else we are them. If he fails, revolution in the streets. Of course, other leftists are seeking less violent ways to oppose Trump. There is a major push to use the Electoral College to block a Trump presidency. If that fails, there are many hoping to immediately impeach Trump once he takes office. And other activists, such as former Labor Secretary Robert Reich, are calling for a new third party if their planned post-election takeover of the Democratic Party is not successful. That said, let's keep going with this because we have governors and mayors and a lot of people are continuing to try and get these protests to continue. Pointing to Donald Trump's recent comments on abortion and controversial appointment of an extremist right favorite to the White House, Mayor de Blasio on Monday urged all Americans to continue protesting, rioting the president-elect. De Blasio, speaking after days of rolling protests against the country's yet-to-be sworn-in 45th president, has sprung up in New York and other cities, said resistance is necessary. This is beginning to sound more and more like they're starting a revolution. I wouldn't call it a revolution, though, because it's not a revolution. This is a communist takeover. Massive anti-Trump protests, riots, planned for Inauguration Day, and the police are on alert. Opponents to Donald Trump's presidency are planning large-scale demonstrations in the nation's capital in January, when the Republican president-elect is sworn in on Inauguration Day, with police apparently expecting tens of thousands of protesters. They're calling for millions. In one of the call to arms video that they've got, you can see on the report that goes with this, which you can click the link in the description box to get to that video. I tried to post videos and things into YouTube just recently the other day, and YouTube got mad at me. I don't know why I'm not allowed to do it, but everybody else seems to be able to. It's weird, but I'm not allowed to. I keep getting warnings and so on and so forth, and I'm not going to risk the channel on something like that. Trump's surprise win Tuesday, because you guys can just easily click a link in the description, and there's your video. Trump's surprise win Tuesday over Democratic rival Hillary Clinton has already sparked smaller protests across the country. However, demonstrations being planned for Inauguration Day weekend, which includes the January 20th swearing in on Capitol Hill, have the potential to be much larger. One protest is being organized by the group Answer, or Act Now, to stop war and end racism. Well, hold on now. We're seeing a war, practically the beginnings of a war, break out in the U.S. But the group to organize the protest is called Stop War and End Racism. Gotcha. The group's Facebook page announcing its protest at the inauguration, Stand Against Trump, War, Racism, and Inequality event on Saturday showed that nearly 7,000 people have already committed to attending the 24,000 more are expressing interest in the event. A Metropolitan Police Department officer said Friday that officers have already been briefed about the proposed demonstration and to prepare for at least 30,000 protesters. That's the minimal. That's the minimal, folks. In one area. An MPD spokesman on Saturday declined to discuss the matter, saying the agency doesn't talk about deploying resources. Now, that also said, and a pro-Clinton group named Roar for Hillary is planning a 1 million woman march on January 21st. Answer started roughly 15 years ago, after the September 11, 2001 terror attacks, and has the potential to attract hundreds of thousands of protesters. Rioters, excuse me. Students all across the country are leading the new wave of anti-Trump protests. High school students led the charge on Monday as protests against President-elect Donald Trump rolled into a sixth day. The Clintons and Soros launch America's Purple Revolution. We just covered what the purple meant. It's looking more and more like the soft takeover of their agenda has begun to fail a little bit, or are we being set up? That's the real question. Are we being set up for something? The supposed takeover is beginning to fail. Which means what exactly? Are they gunning for martial law in January? I want you guys to think back to about June, when there was a BLM tweet, direct message on Twitter that was hacked. That this individual was speaking to Loretta Lynch, and they were gunning to get martial law declared before blank. it cut off. Nobody could see it. The original tweet has been deleted. We've got the image of the tweet on our website. You've got Obama joking about a third term and professional rioters backed by millions of dollars. Millions. Oh, and the media that is continually inciting violence. This is looking a lot more like something is coming. The question is it martial law in January? That's all I've got for you. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. God bless and carry on. Please go to the report with this. I've put a whole video together that I can't put on YouTube. I would have liked to. I put a whole bunch of clips together and so on and so forth. It's about 4 minutes long, but I couldn't put it on YouTube. It goes with the slides in the beginning. Those are the things I could show you on YouTube, that I was allowed to post. I mean, that's ridiculous. Another thing is we've got the George Soros video that you're really going to want to see. And then also we've got their call to arms video that you guys probably should check out too. Because this is something, and we're not paying attention. If we're not paying attention to it, oh boy, we'll get hit. Which is why we need to call it out now. We need to be very alert as to what's going on both sides. And I mean what's going on with Trump and what's going on with Soros. That's all I got for you. God bless and carry on.